Y ahora vamos a comenzar con nuestra primera mesa de debate. Los objetivos de nuestras mesas de debate, desde nuestro tercer Foro Mundial del Turismo Gastronómico, son propiciar el análisis y la reflexión sobre las diferentes dimensiones del concepto de sostenibilidad en el turismo gastronómico, favorecer el intercambio del know-how y de experiencias sobre los temas de debate del Foro Mundial y promover el aprovechamiento de las sinergias existentes entre los diferentes sectores, instituciones públicas, empresas, chefs, en el desarrollo del turismo gastronómico. Voy a pasar a presentar a los miembros de la mesa y les pido que por favor suban al escenario. Please come on stage. Don Luc Bucharski, Mr. Bucharski, director de Skift Research from the United States. Dr. Francisco Madrid Flores, director de la Facultad de Turismo y Gastronomía, Universidad de Anáhuac, México. Dr. Dave Randall, presidente y CEO of Whale Center y profesor de Turismo Sostenible, Universidad de South Florida, Estados Unidos. Les damos un aplauso. Esta mesa estará moderada por Yolanda Perdomo. Le pedimos de nuevo que suba al escenario. Gracias.
So this is a very interesting panel because we have different profiles here. We have somebody who is part of a research company, Luke from the US. We have Dave, who is the president and CEO of Whale Center and professor of Sustainable Tourism Program at the University of South Florida, so an academician, even though you do many different things. And we have another academician, but from Anáhuac University in Mexico. And as I mentioned before, when I was presenting the International Year, every event we organize in 2017, everything we do, every activity has to be embedded by its values, by its messages, and this conference has to do that too. So when we're talking about gastronomy tourism, we are also talking about sustainable gastronomy tourism. And this is the topic of this first panel. And what we're trying to understand, and I think, well, we have already seen many practical tips from our keynote speaker, but you have different perspectives, and you are working in different areas. And I would love to know what do you think the contribution of gastronomy tourism can be to sustainability, or what is your perspective, if there's anything that can be done, if you see any challenges, anything that perhaps we should incorporate in our action plan in order to try to foster a new perspective in this regard. So perhaps, Luc, would you like to start?
Sure. Yolanda, thanks so much for having us here. A fantastic event. I would just kind of put things into context a little bit in terms of, you know, what sustainability is. I think a big challenge with sustainability is that it means different things to different people, right? We heard Professor Gosling talk about the environmental sustainability component of it, but there's also, you know, an element of cultural sustainability when it comes to tourism, right? We're talking about tourism and sustainability. There's the, you know, the economic sustainability component of it when it comes to the local scene, the fiscal sustainability when it comes to infrastructure. There's the, you know, the profit sustainability when it comes to the hotel groups and the businesses that ultimately run tourism. So I think it's difficult to bring people together around sustainability because it means different things to different people. But I think that, you know, ultimately food is one of those things that brings everybody together in a way that, you know, that I think we can all rally behind. And, you know, it's one of those things that ultimately, you know, is at the core of every travel experience, right? And it's very much at the core of what we spend in travel from the business perspective. So I think there's a really a deep connection there in terms of what sustainability is and what food is and what the connection is there. And I would just say that, you know, for the industry, we do a lot of, you know, we report on the industry at Skift. We talk about what's happening, what the big players are up to. And, you know, one thing that, you know, ultimately comes to mind in terms of how do we produce a sustainable travel ecosystem is that individual experience that at the local level, right? If that is compromised, then the global tourism industry is in trouble as well. So what role does food play in maintaining good local experiences, I think is just to put a little bit of context around the conversation.
Fantastic. Perhaps Dave, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, from my perspective, food is in the overall context of what the science is now calling planetary boundaries. And the ones most relevant to gastronomy, I think, are climate change, ocean acidification, biodiversity loss in the nitrogen, phosphorus cycles. So how we grow our food, where we serve our food, how we transport our food, what are we doing to model living within these limits? And I think that's one of the challenges that gets overlooked sometimes in just the presentation of the food itself. So I would think that we'd want to look at things in new futuristic ways. I hadn't thought about the idea of taking doggy bags out that was mentioned in the presentation, perhaps because what we're looking at is how do restaurants take that food waste and turn it into energy through biodigesters. Some places are actually by law requiring that every restaurant take their food waste and convert it into energy, rather than giving the option, take your doggy bag. We're saying, no, you are going to use this for an energy source. Some of our communities are saying no to dangerous fertilizers, and some of them are ignoring that issue. So I think we need to get some more uniformity that we're living within the planetary boundaries.
And Francisco, I know you have launched recently a report in Anáhuac University. Are there any insights here that can help us and understand better how we can perhaps change this or make it become an opportunity and not a challenge?
Well, thank you very much indeed for this very nice invitation from you and WTO. If you allow me, I will take advantage of the translation, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem.
So, yo querría hacer, antes de contestar esta parte que me has preguntado, Yolanda, quizás una breve reflexión sobre qué es esto de la sostenibilidad. Y recuerdo una anécdota de un hombre inmensamente rico en México, al que siempre se le criticó que fuera tan rico. Y una de las cosas que se decían de él es comentarios sobre su ropa. Porque ¿sabes qué hacía él con sus trajes viejos? Se los ponía. Hace 25 años, digamos, tuvimos esta idea de la sostenibilidad y dijimos que había 3 dimensiones para referirnos a ella: la ambiental, la económica y la social. Pero pareciera ser que ese traje que nos funcionó muy bien, pues hoy sigue un poco funcionándonos bien, pero podría ser por lo menos un traje que tuviera otras dimensiones, otros modelos. Me queda corto, en principio, no hablar de cultura en la sostenibilidad, aunque lo hemos incorporado en la práctica. Se nos queda corto en la sostenibilidad del debate ético. ¿Cuál es la ética de la hospitalidad? ¿Cuál es la ética de la sostenibilidad? Y esto especialmente, digamos, lo refiero a 2 cosas. Por un lado, el que con mucha frecuencia el discurso de la sostenibilidad, la retórica de la sostenibilidad viene desde la perspectiva de sociedades o grupos dentro de estas sociedades que han resuelto sus problemas fundamentales. Está muy bien, por ejemplo, como aquí se ha dicho, que con los alimentos habría que tener un procedimiento con biodigestores, pero hay sociedades que están preocupadas por encontrar bancos de alimentos para que antes de que haya biodigestores, los biodigestores sean seres humanos, ¿no?, que tienen necesidades alimenticias que no han concluido. Es decir, sí que parece necesario el que tengamos en claro que hay, digamos, un discurso de la sostenibilidad fantástico con el que todos estamos de acuerdo, pero una realidad práctica, donde a veces esa realidad práctica tiene que ser resuelta primero en términos de sus problemas antes, digamos, que pensar en verdaderamente adoptar un consumo completamente sostenible. Me referiré un poco más tarde, si me lo permites, a algunos de los hallazgos de este estudio, pero simplemente me gustaría retomar que en esta lectura del turismo gastronómico y la sostenibilidad del turismo gastronómico y este entorno del Año Internacional del Turismo Sostenible, sí que me sigue quedando como una idea fundamental el artículo primero de la Carta de Río adoptada hace precisamente 25 años, que el hombre es el protagonista, ¿no?, del desarrollo. Y esta visión me parece muy bien que salvemos las ranitas, salvemos las tortugas, que son muy lindas y muy importantes, pero primero tenemos que salvar a los seres humanos. Digo esto porque México, del que hablaré un poco más tarde, pues tiene prácticamente la mitad de la población con niveles de pobreza. Tiene quizás un 20% de la población con niveles de pobreza extrema. Y entonces el turismo sí que puede contribuir, ¿no?, a encontrar caminos para generar riqueza, para combatir la pobreza. En todo caso, pues hasta aquí dejaría esta primera reflexión, Yolanda.
I see that both Luke and Francisco mention cultural sustainability. And I think that's a very interesting topic. Before, when I was explaining why we think gastronomy tourism is so important, I talked about authenticity and that's a key issue when you want to reposition yourself and differentiate your offerings and so on. And the fact is, do you see an opportunity there through tourism? I mean, is gastronomy, because gastronomy is part of culture, is part of intangible heritage. What's the opportunity there? Do you think that should be, because I think there's a positive, because sometimes when we try to understand this, we see it as something negative. But I think gastronomy and food can play an important role in terms of culture and preservation of culture and for local communities. Do you agree? Do you see that this can be faced in a different manner, that there are opportunities there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many layers to what you're saying there. And just kind of one context of that is what's happening in certain destinations like Barcelona or Venice or Amsterdam, where people are really, the locals are really starting to notice the let's say the negative externalities that tourism is having on their way of life, right? Culture. And this is just one, just an example. There's so many different nuances, but, thinking about this idea of over-tourism, right? And trying to understand what is ultimately the right amount of visitors that we bring into our communities is, I think, a big question. And when we think about obviously gastronomy and the preservation of that culture, in the context of sustainability, I think there's, in that sense, sustainability is preservation of local communities, local culture through food. Because if you're talking about, local farms, you're talking about sourcing locally, you're ultimately sourcing the ingredients that particular environment, that ecosystem can sustain. And those recipes, those local, food items that are brought in from that local ecosystem, that local agriculture base, are ultimately there for a reason, because they were born from the local ecosystem. So preserving those local ingredients, those local recipes, is also preserving local cultural identity in a way as well. So that kind of ties into the sustainability aspect of it, right?
Actually, I was thinking of that because in a recent visit to a very important financial institution in the U.S., we had a meeting to see how we could see how they could finance more tourism projects and so on. And what they told us is like, in the last years, we haven't been financing many things in tourism because we thought that wasn't what we had to do. And then we understood that if we did that, we could preserve heritage. And they saw the opportunity because of that, not because of tourism being, a tool for development and very powerful. So, and they have started to do so just because of that. So I think there, in terms of sustainability, tourism can be, gastronomy tourism can be a powerful tool to achieve that goal.
So, just to put a little bit of numbers into context, we did a great study, a big report with the Catalunya Tourism Board, and go to skift.com and put in the search, put in Catalunya sustainability. You can download the report. But we looked at how much spend, local spend, in destination spend actually goes into food, and about 40% of everything that's spent locally. And I mean, obviously, it varies from destination to destination. If you're more of a luxury destination versus more of a travel. Bargain destination, but it's about 40% of what's spent locally by the travelers goes into food. So just if you think about the context there for Barcelona, for example, and Catalunya, that's $4 billion annually that's spent by tourists alone on food.
Yeah, so. It's huge. In Mexico, for example, Francisco, do you think that if it wasn't because of tourism, people would make an effort in preserving the local culture, the local gastronomy and the authenticity of it? Or do you think that this helps?
No, yo creo que si bien el turismo es cada vez más importante, no es necesariamente la razón para la conservación de esa cultura todavía. Si me permites, creo que sería bueno dar algunos datos de lo que significa el turismo en México hoy en día y luego tratar de poner en perspectiva dónde encaja la parte de la gastronomía. México recibió el año pasado 35 millones de turistas, es decir, es el 8º país más visitado en el mundo. México recibió casi 20 mil millones de dólares, 20 billones de dólares, es el 14º con más ingresos. Y México es el 22º lugar en el ranking de competitividad turística del World Economic Forum. Esto es, digamos, la parte más conocida y la parte de la que siempre hablamos. Sorprende quizás que el 80% del consumo turístico en México lo hacen los propios mexicanos. En todo caso, más allá de esos datos, donde es relevante empezar a hablar del turismo en México es su significado en la vida de las personas. Primero en la economía, es casi el 10% de la economía, 8.7, 8,7, genera 3.5 millones de empleos y genera desarrollo. Yo creo que aquí es donde empezamos a hablar de cosas más interesantes. Nosotros hemos revisado, y a partir de esa condición de que México es un país que tiene grandes desigualdades, grandes inequidades, ¿no? Por ejemplo, el 67%, 2/3 partes de los municipios tienen condiciones de marginación media, alta y muy alta. En contraste, los municipios turísticos, el 70% de ellos tienen condiciones de marginación baja y muy baja. El rezago social está presente en condiciones alta, muy alta, en el 44% de los municipios, pero solo en el 11% de los municipios turísticos. Es decir, sí hay una relación en que el turismo ha generado desarrollo verdaderamente para las comunidades. Nosotros hicimos un ejercicio contrafactual, publicamos el año pasado, y dice, ¿y qué pasaría si no hubiera turismo? Imaginemos un día sin turismo en México. Y lo pasaría es que ese día habría 2 millones de mujeres que no tendrían empleo. Y lo que pasaría ese día es que habría un 20% más de ninis, jóvenes que no estudian, que ni estudian y ni trabajan, ¿no? La cuenta corriente tendría un déficit 30% mayor. Ahí es donde yo creo que empieza a tener sentido, pero bueno, y estamos hablando de turismo gastronómico aquí. Entonces, hablemos un poco de lo que supone el turismo cultural en México, si me lo permites, para cerrar esta parte de la conclusión. Nosotros desarrollamos un estudio, que también lo pueden bajar de la página de la Universidad de Anáhuac, Facultad de Turismo, Publicaciones, con financiamiento público. Medimos qué significa el turismo cultural. Entrevistamos a un poco más de 1,000 turistas internacionales, trabajamos con la estadística básica y lo que encontramos en realidad nos sorprende. El 14% de los turistas, bueno, primero hay 2 tipos de turistas claramente culturales, los que viajan a México motivados por la cultura y los que viajan a México por otras razones, pero que toman contacto con la cultura en su viaje al país. 14% de los turistas nacionales, 15% de los turistas internacionales van motivados especialmente por la cultura, pero el 43% de los nacionales y el 81% de los internacionales consumen cultura durante su viaje. Quizás la parte más relevante para lo que estamos hablando ahora es que es precisamente la comida típica la primera actividad que se realiza por cualquier turista en nuestro país. Es decir, probablemente desde la perspectiva europea, por ejemplo, México es visto como un destino de sol y playa, un destino más bien de clima. Pues resulta que la principal actividad que realiza un turista internacional en México, el 91% de ellos es comer comida típica, en contraste con el disfrute del sol y la playa, que lo hace solo 2/3 partes de los viajeros. Pero lo mismo sucede con los turistas nacionales. Es la principal actividad, el 75% de los turistas nacionales consumen comida típica. Es decir, si hacemos la conexión de todo lo que he dicho, el turismo hacia México sí que es un turismo cultural importante y sí que el turismo cultural tiene un ingrediente fundamental en el turismo gastronómico. Es decir, ese turismo gastronómico, parte del turismo cultural, parte del turismo mexicano, genera desarrollo para esas comunidades locales.
Y ayuda a preservar las recetas tradicionales, etcétera, etcétera, porque de otra manera a lo mejor se perdería mucho más.
Yo creo que ahí tenemos una discusión pendiente, ¿no? Esas recetas tradicionales ciertamente están ahí, pero no necesariamente son lo que el turista consume, ¿no? Digamos que hay 2 niveles en esa cocina tradicional.
Okay.
Una cocina muy auténtica, ¿no? Muy de las comunidades, y una cocina auténtica pero un poco más hacia afuera,
Okay.
¿no? Que es la que hoy está favorecida.
O sea que ahí también hay una oportunidad de mejora.
Ahí hay una oportunidad, no sé si de mejora, pero por lo menos para estudiar.
Perfecto. Dave, in terms of what we're discussing now, culture, gastronomy, sustainability, is there anything you would like to add? What's your perspective?
Well, I would think, first of all, we need to examine cultures in the context that are our cultures worth preserving? Are some cultures destructive in terms of practices? And that's something that we don't usually raise as a question, but if we think back through history, human sacrifice used to be a cultural practice. Slavery used to be a cultural practice. In terms of gastronomy, we now have the situation that people eating sea turtles that are all threatened, endangered, or critically endangered is a major problem, a practice that maybe as a cultural tradition no longer can continue. We also have the case in the US with indigenous tribes that have cultural practices of eating certain fish, where that fish is now endangered or extinct. How do we bring these balances to preserve that, but not in a way that exploits that in terms of a practice? The American author Mark Twain once said that travel is very hazardous to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-minded thinking. Because when you travel, you learn about cultures and you develop an appreciation and you develop a connection that you want to protect those things. So I think in that sense, if we can bring that out in our gastronomy, what is it that needs protecting? So we don't have to go to the point like with the sea turtles where we have to stop the cultural practice. How do we preserve that cultural practice from that appreciation, that love of what these people offer? And I think that's something we can add to the gastronomy, building greater respect and appreciation for those cultural traditions we need to preserve, and teaching and wisdom and education in our gastronomy experiences of how people around the world that visit can help to do that.
And if we have to look for inspiration somewhere to see what can we do really to promote this, I'm thinking of a case in Turkey because it was one of the finalists of our UNWTO awards 2 years ago. It was a case in Turkey. And they had the practice, there were several tour operators involved in this operation with a local agency. And what they did is that they worked with the farmers so that the products went directly to the hotels where the consumption was done in the hotels, so that the tourists could have fresh products from the place. They had like also local recipes, and the farmers were directly involved in the tourism sector. I think that's something that is just organizing what you have there and bringing together different stakeholders so that works and to coordinate it. Do you know any other practices that could be implemented? Do you have or a wish that something could be implemented perhaps that doesn't exist yet?
Well, I've seen a lot of really positive models in small communities in Florida where I live and also throughout the Caribbean, where small fishing villages are taking the issues of sustainable fishing seriously, creating their own marine protected areas within their village, fishing areas to have the fish stocks come back and to reinvent how they fish. They're not stopping being fishermen, they're just learning to fish differently. And I see this as a very positive impact that they can continue their cultural traditions by doing things a little more sustainably.
Luke?
Yeah, I think that just kind of in the bigger picture of scheme of things, if we talk about sustainability into action and how we drive sustainability through tourism, it's clearly going to start at the local level, you know, where the communities that are impacted start to really react and work in a sustainable way because they see their day-to-day lives threatened, but also the revenues that they're pulling in from tourism. So, you know, sustainability in terms of experiences for the tourist is as important as it is for preserving the way of life. You know, economies that are very much tied to the tourism sector is a big example there. Whether it's you know, Cancun in Mexico, or you know, Barcelona, or I mean other examples where there's just this very clear tie. And I think that, you know, we can look at it at the big macro level. Obviously, there's a lot there in terms of environmental threat, but when it comes to action, that's where we're going to see these kind of micro changes really happen in these communities, you know, that are reacting to what's happening and we think about over-tourism and how it kind of impacts it all.
Any practices that you could recommend? Or anything that you would like, or something you would like to have, or something that you always thought that would be a lovely project and it has never been implemented. And if it doesn't come to you now, then don't worry, because I'll ask something else and then we can come back to it. Don't worry.
No problem. I was thinking that there is a very nice contradiction here, you know? But because this morning, Taleb Rifai, our very good friend, said that globalization is not an option. And on the other hand, we have said, the professor presented this idea to push the local consume. So where are we at this time? Of course, the big chain hotels, this industry is trying to improve its balances because they need to be profitable. No? And I believe that the really big challenge here is how to balance this global food market and how to introduce the local consumption. No?
It may be because I'm a very optimistic person, I really am, that I think that we are improving. I think that people have better feelings, or they have better principles, or they have better, more moral values. I see the young generation, the millennials, for whom that's very important. It's part of their choices, and they really care. It's not a fashion, it's part of their nature. And even the fact that we are discussing this today, that this is the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development, that we are all worried about it, and that we perhaps want to change many things we do, is because we are becoming better. We worry more, we are more responsible, and so on. Is it because I'm an optimistic person, or do you agree with this? Do you think this is just something that is not really true, that then at the end of the day nothing is going to change? Do you think that this is really progressively become something very important and relevant, and are we going to have a better society?
I think a couple of things. We're all logical human beings, so we recognize the threats that overconsumption has on our society, but also individuals and our families and friends. So we see that, and we want to do better as individuals, I think. The question is whether or not we'll be able to act in time as a society to curb the dangers that Dr. Gosling kind of summarized at the macro level. But I also think that it's also a selfish thing in that we want better experiences when we travel. We're exposed to so much more these days through our phones. Access to information has just kind of opened up the world to us. So what used to be a great experience, going to the Eiffel Tower or the Statue of Liberty, we want more now. We want to be connected to the local culture. And as it turns out, we're really interested to know where our food is coming from. It's fascinating to see, the whole food value chain and the production from farm to fork. All these concepts are clearly very popular, but I think it's our responsibility and as stewards of the global environment, and we feel an obligation to it, but it's also a selfish reason because we like it. It's a better overall experience in terms of, if rather than keeping our eyes closed, right?
Dave?
Yeah, I'm also optimistic about the younger generations, but I'm not so optimistic about current political and institutional structures. And I think we need to realize there's a difference, that the younger people's values are not necessarily in line with our political leadership and institutional structures that are governing and creating barriers for people even doing what they know is the right thing when they want to do the right thing, if there's not the opportunity to easily or readily do so. So I think the question in my mind is more complex than just are we coming up with new values now in a younger generation or not. I would think that one of the real challenges we have is how do we continue to grow and produce more food with an increasing population without totally destroying the habitat for biodiversity and other needs that the planet has. And these are not going to be done on individual piecemeal measures. They're going to be done on a global scale. Global problems do require global solutions, as was alluded to earlier this morning. And I think we need to pay attention more to what some of these global solutions are.
Yo como tú soy parte de la cofradía de los optimistas, ¿no? Es mejor que de la cofradía del Santo Reproche, ¿no? Tengo 2 hijas, no puedo dejar de ser optimista, además las 2 son millennials. Pero creo que no es suficiente con ser optimistas. Yo creo que tenemos que movernos. Y ciertamente esta capacidad de movimiento debe empezar en el ámbito local. Quienes tenemos el privilegio de estar en la parte de la formación, sí que podemos encontrar una oportunidad concreta para transformar esa realidad, no solo con los estudiantes, sino también entendiendo que pertenecemos a una comunidad, que es lo que ahora mismo estamos haciendo. En la universidad trabajamos con comunidades locales, desarrollando productos gastronómicos, por ejemplo, ¿no? Hemos hecho para el entorno de comunidades rurales alrededor de la Ciudad de México un proceso de formación de capacidades locales para que ellos solos puedan, a partir de los productos locales, ponerlos en valor. Si no lo hubiéramos hecho, el producto existiría la autenticidad, la buena voluntad, pero algo queda pendiente, que es esta formación de las capacidades de gestión. No se trata de que sustituyamos lo que ellos hacen, sino que contribuyamos a que puedan efectivamente salir al mercado, romper esa historia de la ventaja comparativa y volver a realmente una ventaja competitiva. La universidad tiene entonces esta responsabilidad y también asumirla desde el punto de vista de la investigación.
I know, because we have just 10 minutes left. An idea from every one of you. What would you like to see happening in the near future in terms of gastronomy tourism, not only gastronomy tourism as a whole, also in terms of product and sustainability?
Good question. I think it's just going to be really important I want to see the cities the destinations that have a special role in the global tourism industry. Like I said, the big ones that are going through these huge transformations really act as leaders in the way that they present their product to the people that come. Because if you think about kind of the global travel ecosystem and how individuals travel, you have a series of points on a checklist, right? Everybody's going to go to Barcelona. Everybody's going to go to London, maybe once in their life. New York. So these big gateway cities, I think, are going to be very critical in setting the tone and agenda in terms of food and sustainability. And as people, because you're only what you are of what you know at the local level. So if you don't know any better, then you're not going to change your ways. But that's what's great about travel, is that you go along and you pick up little ideas and you pick up new practices in life. And I think that there's a big opportunity for these gateway cities to really set a great example, and to kind of, as these global travel systems go through and everybody goes through their checklists, they pick up these best practices in these gateway cities. So I think that these bigger cities really need to take a leadership role in driving sustainability in food and what it all means, and act as just propagators of good best practices.
Dave, any idea?
I would like to see us systematically look through the whole value chain of how we can do things more sustainably, but I would focus first on the local farmers. Most of our food comes from small local farmers, not these big agribusiness groups. And these are the groups we need to find ways to better empower and assist in keeping their operations going and keeping them moving towards more sustainability.
Francisco.
Me quedo, Yolanda, pensando que el debate propicia la reflexión sobre estas contradicciones que subyacen atrás de lo que venimos hablando de esta sostenibilidad. Me referiría a dos particularmente. Simplemente reafirmar el que la naturaleza del turismo es una naturaleza abierta. En la Organización Mundial de Turismo se propugna por quitar las fronteras para que las personas viajen. Vamos un poco a contracorriente del proteccionismo que observamos en Estados Unidos, que observamos en el Reino Unido, ¿no? Los leones se volvieron herbívoros, ¿no? Creo que ahí hay un gran tema, porque del otro lado queremos que todo sea local y tenemos una industria que compite sobre bases, digamos, de una rivalidad muy fuerte. La segunda contradicción, de la que hemos hablado menos, pero creo que habría que poner sobre la mesa, es que promovemos al mismo tiempo la preservación, la conservación de esa comida tradicional como el valor del turismo gastronómico, pero estamos aquí, por ejemplo, en el Basque, que es un centro de innovación. Parte de este despegue, y lo podría decir mucho mejor Rafael Anzón, pero de la cocina de la libertad, como él llama, está fundada precisamente en la innovación. Parte de esto que nos deslumbra como turistas gastronómicos tiene que ver con innovación. Probablemente sí fundada en ingredientes locales, pero no solamente en eso, pero no solamente en técnicas locales. Entonces, sí que me parece que tenemos que tener una mente muy abierta y evitar caer en un fundamentalismo cuando hablamos de estos temas de la sostenibilidad y el turismo gastronómico.
Thank you. So I thank you all. I just hope that this conference that is just starting, during these panels and also those two sessions in which we'll have many case studies from our affiliate and member states, many of which are in the report I presented earlier, can give us some guidance so as to make gastronomy tourism become a powerful tool for sustainability, including these elements of leadership that I think that's a very powerful idea, and the incorporation of the whole value chain, especially the farmers, and this need to take innovation into consideration and not to have ideas about fixed elements in gastronomy. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you.